All right, hello everybody. This is the Fantasy Sports Boss. Welcome to the Fantasy Sports Boss Fantasy Football Podcast. It is Friday, July 21st, 2023. And of course, anybody that's new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe, hit the notification, and the like button if you haven't done so already. Lots of stuff going on with training camps starting to open up. And of course, here in New York, you have the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers, and the circus has come to town with all of the media and the attention for Rodgers as he embarks on a new chapter in his career with gangrene and his expected massive impact on Garrett Wilson, to a lesser extent Allen Lazard, and Breece Hall when he finally makes it back and whatnot. Plus today I want to talk about some advanced statistical numbers and trends that I think you need to be aware of as the drafts, they have been fully underway since May, but are going to pick up in frequency and intensity as most people have their draft in August. And, believe it or not, we're almost at August already, just, about 10 days away, as the summer is just flying by. And like I said before, we're going to be here in week one, the Thursday night opener, and our obsession with fantasy football is going to be fully underway. So, it seemed like it was a long off season, no doubt about it. Hopefully some of you guys had success winning your leagues last season, because if you don't win your league or any of your leagues, then it's a very long off season. It leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. I know for me, I went 1-2 and 1 for 2 in my two leagues. I won one, and I was knocked out in the wild card round in the other. So, it was a mixed bag. But I'm pretty much going 50-50 in both of my two leagues. I guess that's as good as you could expect. I mean, of course, would love to win them both, but fantasy football is very random, as you know, and sometimes you just run into a hot team, which I did in the league that I lost last season. And the ironic part is I had beaten that team in the last week of the regular season. I actually slaughtered him, and then the following week, I guess the law of averages caught up, and then he wound up beating me, the same opponent. So. But anyway, a couple of, I always want to start off with the news of the day and the odds and ends that are going on. And Jets head coach Robert Saleh met with the media yesterday, which was the first day of practice for the Jets in training camp. And he spoke about Breece Hall, who, of course, is on the PUP list as he recovers from an ACL tear and also some meniscus damage in his knee, which really put the kibosh on what was shaping up to be an offensive rookie of the year campaign. He would have probably won it over Garrett Wilson, his teammate. And it just really goes to show you how good the Jets draft was. I mean, the Jets have been a laughingstock for, almost as long as I've been on the earth. And, to have not only the offensive rookie of the year, but the defensive rookie of the year in Sauce Gardner, and then also have Breece Hall, who would have been right there with Wilson in the running for that offensive rookie of the year award. Tearing the ACL, major bummer there. But, we've been getting mixed signals about Hall's availability throughout the offseason, and even yesterday. So Saleh did make note that that Hall was recorded running 22 miles per hour, a 22-mile-per-hour sprint. So he's running at a very good clip. The recovery seems to be on track, and Saleh said he's very optimistic. However, he also talked about Dalvin Cook. That the team still has an interest in Dalvin Cook, who's remains a free agent and hasn't picked his team yet. The New England Patriots seem to have moved on by having a workout for Darrell Henderson, having a workout for Leonard Fournette. The Miami Dolphins are, of course, still involved. So just the fact that the Jets are still kicking the tires on Dalvin Cook means that Breece Hall still is not a lock to be there for week one. So this is something that we're going to have to watch. And the Jets really, they'd love to have him back quickly, but the end game is winning the Super Bowl. So if it takes, 4 weeks on PUP to begin the season to ensure that Breece Hall is ready to go fully, then so be it. And for myself, I've been a big Breece Hall proponent this entire offseason. Got a little more gun shy, I guess, if you will, when it comes to him as we've moved into the summer. Back in May, it was gangbusters for Hall, but now that, it seems like they're slow walking his return, I'm a little bit more hesitant to fully invest in him, especially not knowing what's going to happen with Dalvin Cook. And let's face it, the history of guys coming back from torn ACLs, usually that first season back, and I always like to bring up the Saquon Barkley comparison, because when Barkley tore his ACL a number of years ago, he averaged less than 4 yards per carry the first season back. So Hall is probably not going to be firing on all cylinders, especially early in the season in terms of his speed and explosiveness. But as the season goes on, he could be a real weapon down the stretch of the season. And so, I think worst case scenario, he misses the first 4 games being on PUP. But there's a good chance he's ready to go week 1. But even if he is ready to go week 1, I don't think he's going to be getting a full allotment of carries. I think it's still going to be a moderate amount of carries early on. So if you do invest in Hall, who you could get in the late second round right now, even the third round in some leagues, I wouldn't automatically start him, to begin the season. I would play it by ear each week, see how he's doing, and then react to that. All right. So, but again, it's good news that he appears like he's on track to return, and that's all you could ask for at this point. So the Athletics' Nate Taylor reported yesterday that Isiah Pacheco, who also is on PUP but is fully expected to be ready for week 1, expected to be the starter and handle an increased workload, including pass receiving. So, Pacheco, actually, he caught the ball really well in the playoffs and in the Super Bowl. And that was the knock on him coming out of college, is that he wasn't much of a receiver. But he did show in the playoffs, when the games were at their most important, the stakes were the highest, that he could catch the ball. He runs like his hair is on fire, massive power, legs always churning, very impressive runner. I have a mixed reaction when it comes to Pacheco. On the one hand, his ADP is very generous. He's going in the 8th round in some leagues, so that's definitely attractive. He's fully the guy, at least running the ball. The problem I have with Pacheco, since I take part in PPR leagues, is that we still don't know how many catches or how involved he's going to be catching the ball. Jerick McKinnon was brought back, and we all know how good he was the second half of last season, catching a lot. I believe it was 9 touchdowns he caught. And Pat Mahomes threw more passes in the red zone than any other quarterback in the NFL last season. So he's going to be throwing a lot. And that does cut down on the opportunities for Isiah Pacheco in terms of what he could be, what he could be conceivably contributing to his owners this season. I still think he's a firm running back too, and I don't think there's any argument there. In standard leagues, he's much more valuable, but in PPR leagues, I still think he's straddling that low end running back 2, high end running back 3 tier. All right. So Jordan Addison not making a good first impression. He was cited for driving 140 miles an hour in a 55 mile per hour zone Thursday morning. So, what are you doing, dude? I mean, come on, you got to be kidding me with that. So 100, he's lucky he didn't kill somebody. I mean, there was no indication that he was intoxicated. So this is not, a Henry Ruggs situation. God, that was awful. That whole situation. That story was just brutal. But it does speak to possible immaturity, clear immaturity with Jordan Addison, who, has a lot of supporters in the fantasy football community already. I take a wait and see approach. This rookie receiver class is not anywhere near the classes of the last 2 years. And that's why you didn't see any receivers drafted early. Now, I know there was a rush towards the end of the round, the latter part of the first round, where 4 guys went back to back to back to back. But Adam Thielen's no longer in town, so Addison's going to conceivably get those looks that Thielen got. But TJ Hawkinson's a number 2 guy. Justin Jefferson clearly is a number 1 guy. But this is a passing offense, and you got to love Kevin O'Connell because he knows what he's doing, obviously, in terms of the passing game. But I wouldn't go crazy reaching for Jordan Addison. If you can get him as a wide receiver 4, great. Wide receiver 3, I'm not sold yet. I want to see it with him. Okay, I like Zay Flowers better in terms of rookie quarterbacks. Quentin Johnston's getting some love. He's still behind 3 other guys, everybody being healthy in the Chargers wide receiver room. So I'm not seeing that. But I think Addison's going to be decent, but I think it's going to be inconsistent early on. All right, the Jets unloaded Denzel Mims to the Detroit Lions for exchanging 6th and 7th round conditional picks. So it never really took off for Denzel Mims with the Jets. He got injured early. Had a really bad case of food poisoning that inhibited him last season. Baylor receivers haven't done very well in the NFL. A lot of that is due to scheme, and it never worked. He didn't want to play special teams, so he's going to get a new opportunity with Detroit. But Mims has good height, good speed, but Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to just gobble up everything there. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be used a lot in the passing game, so I'm not really. There's really very little in the way of fantasy football news in terms of what Mims is concerned. So nothing earth shattering yet. But again, when camps get fully opened up for everybody, there's going to be a lot to talk about over the next couple of weeks. So make sure again you hit the subscribe button. All right, so a couple of things that I was looking at that I wanted to share with you today. So running back yards per route run. So running back yards per route run is a good stat to try to identify who some of the more accomplished, explosive receivers are at the running back position. And, this is an important list to take a look at if you're in a PPR league, obviously. All right. So the higher running backs that appear on this list, the more explosive they are, the more capable of high-end receiving production that they have in their arsenal. So there's some interesting names. So from last season, 2022, I took a look at the top 10 of the running back yards per route run. And wouldn't you know it that Derrick Henry was number one in the NFL, 2.08 yards per route run last season. Now, listen, Henry actually did an okay job last season catching the football. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Let me just pull that up. So last season, 41 targets, 33 catches. So 33 catches for Derrick Henry is a lot. The two previous seasons before that, not only 18 and 19 catches. And it makes sense, that number, because with the ball in his hand, good luck trying to tackle Henry out in the open field. The Titans seem to make more of a concerted effort to include him in the passing game. And so the thinking goes, all right, maybe they're going to use him more this season. I'm not ready to jump on that bandwagon yet, especially after the Titans just brought in DeAndre Hopkins to join an emerging Treylon Burks, an emerging Chikozzie Okonkwo at tight end. So I'm not ready to go there and say that Derrick Henry now all of a sudden is a PPR asset. He's still right there with Nick Chubb in terms of really just a supreme runner, and whatever you get in the passing game is just a bonus. I mean, Adrian Peterson made a Hall of Fame living having a career like this, as is now Derrick Henry, and really Nick Chubb for that matter. But, if they do use him more in the passing game, obviously he's proven he could be very explosive with the ball in his hands, and is just a major force to try to bring down. Breece Hall was number 2 with 2 yards per route run. And this is no surprise. So Breece Hall caught a lot of passes in college at Iowa State. And with the Jets, he did a really good job, really opened some eyes. Breece Hall, if he didn't get hurt last season, he was going to be probably top 3. You have Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, and I think Breece Hall would have been 3rd. I really, truly believe that in terms of the running back hierarchy. And we're going to see more of the same this season when he does get back on the field. Number 3, Christian McCaffrey, 1.83 yards per route run. No shock there. Again, McCaffrey is the best receiving back in football. Nyheim Hines was 4th, 1.77. He's an odd entity. I mean, he had some moments with the Colts catching the football a couple of years ago, but obviously don't draft him this season. Alvin Kamara, 5th, 1.66. So Alvin Kamara is interesting because we know he pled guilty to a misdemeanor, not a felony. That will probably change the calculus at least a little bit when it comes to the suspension that's expected to be handed down. I said it's going to go from 6 to 4 games. Kamara's going to appeal it. They'll probably chop a game off, probably 3 games. 2 to 3 games is what I think the suspension is. So if it is 2 to 3 games, then all of a sudden Kamara looks like a good investment. Especially he's going like running back 22, 23 right now. And bringing in Jamal Williams, you might say, oh, this is a bad thing. Jamal Williams is going to get all the goal line touches. But to me, Kamara wore down last season from all the work he was getting. And remember, he was a Pro Bowler every year of his career when Mark Ingram was there helping him out, taking the majority well, not the majority, but a good chunk of the rushing, responsibility. So I think this preserves Kamara, will make him more impactful, and he's still an amazing receiver. So, whereas I was completely out on Kamara before, barring a 2-3 game suspension, I think I'm back in on him. And again, it's all value for me at running back this season. All right, number 6 is DeAndre Swift, 1.65. All right, so now I'm going to segue into the Eagles backfield. Man, there is a lot of potential with this Philadelphia Eagles backfield. It's not even funny. You have two guys here in this backfield, talking about DeAndre Swift, talking about Rashad Penny, who have beyond explosive ability, all right, and could be major fantasy football weapons at very, very depressed draft costs. They're never going to be cheaper than they are this season, DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny. And here's the thing with DeAndre Swift. Obviously, the coaching staff in Detroit was not a fan of his. All right, they basically ignored him when it came to running the football. But what was amazing is that Swift still finished top 20 in PPR leagues, playing in only 14 games, and in part-time duty with just 99 carries. So in 2021, Swift had 151 carries. All right, he averaged 4.1. Last season, only 99 carries for 542 yards. That was at 5.5 a pop. All right, he's 4.8 per carry for his career. 5 rushing touchdowns on the ground, which is what he had the year before. He had 8 on the ground in 2020. Now, receiving. DeAndre Swift last year had 48 catches. All right? The last 3 years, 46, 62, and 48. All right? For a grand total of 7 receiving touchdowns. All right? Those are pretty impressive numbers, especially catching the football. And the problem, though, with DeAndre Swift is that the more work he gets, the more likely he is to get hurt. And he just couldn't stay on the field. There was a declining impact with Swift the more work he got due to the fact he would get hurt. And I think that the Detroit Lions coaching staff were over it, and that's why they flipped him to the Eagles and drafted Jahmyr Gibbs. Because now Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have these, 70 targets, 50 plus catches, 500 yards rushing, probably a total of 8 to 10 touchdowns between rushing and receiving. So, which is why I'm very big on Gibbs as well. But I'm intrigued with Swift in Philadelphia. And if you're in a standard league, you got to be intrigued with Rashad Penny as well. Penny for his career, 5.1 yards per carry. Last season, 6.1 in 5 games. The year before that, in 10 games, 6.3. Had one of the greatest second half performances I've ever seen from a running back to help win leagues in 2021. Now, we all know he doesn't catch the football. There is zero impact for Penny in terms of catching the football. But he is explosive personified. And he's going to get a decent opportunity, I think, with the Eagles. Now, the giant elephant in the room with the Eagles is the quarterback situation, Jalen Hurts. Now, Hurts runs the football a lot around the goal line. We all know that. He is the ultimate vulture when it comes to keeping the ball and scoring rushing touchdowns. 760 yards, 13 touchdowns on the ground last season for Jalen Hurts. That is an astronomical number for a quarterback. And obviously, that's going to take away from DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny's haul. So they have to be knocked. So really, if you look at it, Penny gets hurt more by Jalen Hurts than DeAndre Swift. The other factor too, though, and I've spoken about this, is that running quarterbacks don't check down often to their backs, and Hurts is not like this either. All right, Miles Sanders hardly caught anything last season. They're much more apt to tuck it and run than they are to throw it to their running backs. So, how many is DeAndre Swift going to be able to catch 50 passes? That's a legitimate question. But it's not going to cost a lot to find out. All right, it's definitely not going to cost a lot to find out. So, both guys are intriguing for sure in terms of their receiving potential. Well, at least for Swift, his receiving potential, and Rashad Penny's rushing potential. All right, so getting back to the list, Austin Eckler is 7th at 1.63. So, I mean, nothing really to discuss here. Austin Eckler is just an insane PPR weapon. He's a cheat code. Is he going to be able to stay healthy for a third year in a row with his modest size? Who knows? They've never been able to find a backup running back. So I think he's safe for at least one more year. Amir Abdullah is 8th with 1.57. He's a non-entity. Tony Pollard 9th at 1.51. And Jerick McKinnon is 10th with 1.50. So all these guys are, with the exception of Pollard and Naheem Hines, are major PPR, studs, potential, major weapons for PPR leagues that you have to be aware of. The best priced, obviously, Alvin Kamara, DeAndre Swift, Jerick McKinnon. Jerick McKinnon, you hate to own guys in PPR leagues that really don't do anything in terms of running the ball. I know J.D. McKissick made a career doing this. There's been some, going back to Larry Centers, there's been guys that have just caught the ball as running backs and had good careers. James White, the ultimate PPR running back. But you really just kind of want to get a little bit more well-rounded of a player. So that's why I'm not really keen on going for those, with the exception being Antonio Gibson, because I do like Antonio Gibson this season. I think Antonio Gibson is going to be a thing with Eric Bieniemy. And I like the value that he brings to the table as well. I just wanted to check the news again before I go on to the next thing. All right. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, and this is an interesting one. So my good buddy Alex Caruso does a great job on Twitter. So go follow him. He puts out some really good content. And he did a study where he looked at running backs that got 70 targets over the last 10 years. And his research was really kind of eye-opening. So 70 targets is the benchmark over the last 10 years. And in terms of the numbers, 100% of the backs that qualified finished top 24 in PPR leagues. So 100% of running backs got 70 targets in the season were top 24. 81% finished top 12. All right, so 81% of 70-plus target running backs finished top 12. That's a big number. You want your drafted running backs to finish top 12. And the running backs who have the best chance of getting the 70 targets this season, based on the historical trends and whatnot, Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler, that's obvious. All right, we already know that. Breece Hall, if he can get back relatively quickly. And here's an interesting one. Talk about well-priced. Aaron Jones. I love Aaron Jones. All right, I've unending love for Aaron Jones. He's going to get 70 targets with Jordan Love at quarterback. All right, Jordan Love's not Aaron Rodgers. He got a strong arm, but he's going to be more conservative, especially early. They're going to lean on the running game. And not for nothing, they've been skewing more toward the run the last couple of years anyway. And Aaron Jones, who averaged over 5 per carry last year, caught over 50 passes, he's just a tremendous receiver. He's going in the 4th and 5th round of PPR leagues right now. I'm all in on Aaron Jones again. So he's going to get those 70 targets. All right, also Joe Mixon, who also has seen his ADP drop. Now, I'm not as keen on Mixon. All right, I just don't like him. I think he's just a complete dirtbag. And I hate drafting guys I just don't like personally because I don't want to root for them. But, Samaje Perine is gone. The cupboard is pretty bare behind him. You talk about Chase Brown, whatever. So Mixon's probably going to get a lot of targets. Also, Saquon Barkley, is he ready to go to start the season? I know a lot has been made about that interview he did in July where he basically said, fuck the Giants. If they don't give me the contract I want, maybe I hold out during the regular season. I don't see him doing that. Like I said, I think Josh Jacobs would be more apt to either shut it down early or not play in the beginning of the season than Barkley. And the realization is, too, these guys are just not going to make up that money. But Barkley has a chance to get the 70-plus targets. Also, again, DeAndre Swift. We talked about DeAndre Swift. He could very well get 70 targets this season. And finally, Antonio Gibson. So Antonio Gibson, who I do like, as a running back 2, 3, straddling that line in PPR leagues, if you do hero running back and you draft a McCaffrey, Eckler, Barkley, first round, second round, then you wait while you fill out your receivers, tight end, and quarterback, you can come back to get Antonio Gibson later on. Okay, so that's something that you can definitely do there as well. All right, guys, I forgot to mention too at the beginning. Make sure you send me your questions at rangerfan.com. Make sure you send me your questions so I can share online through the podcast your questions and answer your questions. As we go throughout the season. And in turn, I was asked about the live streams as well. When the season starts, the live streams are always going to be locked in Friday afternoon, Sunday morning, to go over, who's playing and who's not. Sunday night, and then the live Thursday fantasy cast Thursday night. So those 4 days are definite. Sometimes I also throw in a Monday or a Tuesday. So we gotta look at that as well. All right, here's another interesting stat for you guys. Tight ends with 10-plus red zone receptions in 2022. All right? Obviously, Travis Kelce. Obviously, Mark Andrews. Obviously, TJ Hawkinson. And you know who else was on that list? David Njoku. You know who else was on that list? Gerald Everett. So, 10-plus red zone receptions in 2022. Kelce, Andrews, Hawkinson, the obvious. David Njoku, Gerald Everett. All right. Now, I don't like Gerald Everett. I'm not drafting Gerald Everett, especially now that they got Quentin Johnston. Everybody being healthy, there's just too many targets. David Njoku, though, is very intriguing. All right. We all know about the struggles that Deshaun Watson had last season. Well documented. But 10.8 a catch, 58 catches in 14 games, 80 targets, 4 touchdowns. He was drafted in the first round for a reason. He's just a freak of an athlete. All right, talking about David Njoku, and I think he's got a lot of potential, especially with a full season of Deshaun Watson. And you can say, oh, Amari Cooper is there, Elijah Moore is there. There's a lot of target competition. Oh, true. I know there's definitely sleeper hype with Elijah Moore. Amari Cooper, I think, is a well-priced, low-end wide receiver 1. We've seen Watson target heavily his number 1 wideouts, a la DeAndre Hopkins. So, that's valid. But David Njoku, if you choose to really wait on drafting your tight end, I think that's somebody that you could definitely look at there. Because, the advanced numbers kind of bear that out in terms of how underrated he really is. So anyway, that's why I just wanted to make note of that, because that was another stat that I saw. Dalton Kincaid's getting a lot of attention. 70 catches, 890 yards, 8 touchdowns, led all FBS tight ends last season. I mean, the guy's a tremendous receiver. There's no doubt about it. And he's going to be playing. They're going to operate him in the slot, which is very enticing. The slot's been good. Has been a very profitable spot for the Buffalo Bills, going back to Cole Beasley. We saw some spurts from Isaiah McKenzie last season. Gabe Davis didn't really pan out. He runs way too hot and cold, so I think they were looking for somebody maybe a little bit more consistent, and that's why they drafted Kincaid, who was a natural receiver, as he showed in college. So, I think if he is operated solely in the slot, then there's potential there, no doubt about it, especially in this offense. But we've been burned by rookie tight ends so often that just reflexively, I'm not really keen on reaching for him. If I can get him as a backup, my backup tight end, then I think I'm good with that. So that's how I'm looking at it. Also been getting a lot of questions on where I have Dallas Goedert ranked among the tight ends. So I'm going to update my tight end rankings. Obviously Kelce I have number 1 by far. I have Andrews 2 because I think he's going to be really good in this new offense. I have Hawkinson 3 because he's the second option behind Justin Jefferson, the Kirk Cousins passing offense. 4, I have Kittle. Even though he misses games every year, the guy is a yards after the catch monster. But I've never actively chased George Kittle. Now, 5, this is where things start to diverge a little bit. I don't have Kyle Pitts 5, okay? I have Dallas Goedert 5. Love the Eagles offense more. Obviously love Jalen Hurts more than Desmond Ridder. I have Kyle Pitts 6. All right, and I was burned by Pitts last season in one of my leagues. I mean, it was just unbelievable how bad he wasn't before he got hurt. Not how bad he was, just how listless the passing offense was. And he basically was neutered by Arthur Smith, talking about Kyle Pitts. So I can't do this again with him. And as a matter of fact, even though I have him ranked 6th, I have Darren Waller. As my number 7 guy. All right, so, and I really love Darren Waller this season because he's the number 1 target for the Giants. All right, hold on a second. We got some news. All right, so the Baltimore Ravens, breaking news right on during the stream, guys, during the podcast. Melvin Gordon signed a 1-year deal for $3.1 million with the Baltimore Ravens. Wow, that's more money than I thought he was going to get, first of all. So $3.1 million for Melvin Gordon to go to the Baltimore Ravens with incentives. 1 year, $3.1 million with incentives. Wow. So, all right, so up to the second analysis here, Melvin Gordon. So what I would say about this, and I'm really just digesting this right now, is that how much does this impact J.K. Dobbins? I don't think a lot. I mean, we saw Melvin Gordon last year. He was on fumes. The only concern I have is he going to be the goal line back? Is that, I mean, $3.1 million, it seems like that maybe the Ravens have a plan for him. Oh, man, is he going to be the goal line back? If that's the case, then J.K. Dobbins is going to be hurt, especially if Dobbins doesn't wind up catching more passes this season, as we all kind of expect. Just trying to see if there's anything else here. No, that's it. So, I mean, listen, the Ravens have really done a good job this offseason, not only drafting Zay Flowers, but signing Odell Beckham Jr., signing Nelson Aguilar, now bringing in Melvin Gordon to help out J.K. Dobbins, and really probably to serve, I would think more or less now to serve as insurance in case Dobbins gets hurt, which, obviously he's been hurt a lot. So that if that's why this move was made, then great. But they also have Gus Edwards. So I don't know. I'm not really following this one, to be honest with you. Melvin Gordon doesn't scare me off J.K. Dobbins a bit in his current ADP, according to Luke Sawhook, who's a decent guy in the fantasy world. Yep. So that's, listen, I'm not worried about this either. But we're going to start seeing more and more of these veteran backs, especially before camp opens. Ezekiel Elliott, Kareem Hunt, Dalvin Cook, they're going to sign and really fuck over somebody. Darrell Henderson, like a Breece Hall, like a Ramondre Stevenson. So that's something that we're really going to have to pay attention to here. So, anyway. So that's it for today. I'm going to probably try to do a live stream later on in the day. So make sure you look for that. Have that notification button hit. Send your questions at RangerFan. RangerFan28 at yahoo.com. And also subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. So until then, we'll see you later.